the guided meditation.
Beautiful, but thank you, Purple, and so good to see you. I've seen some of you, and I've been sticking my nose in at Science of Mind every day, Sunday mornings at 9 o'clock. Love the level of and depth of conversation that's been happening. So happy, and I want to take a moment here too. And it's funny, by the way, anybody who's ever seen me speak, you know that I never stand still. So it's pretty interesting to be sitting down when my lower half of my body feels like it just wants to run all around the room here. I want to, if you are here, and I want to welcome, there's somebody specific I want to welcome. And then I see that Cheryl Robinson is with us for the first time in quite some time. So Cheryl, welcome. I'm glad to see you. I don't know if you were expecting Joel or not, but you got me. And I don't know who Al is. If Al, you are somebody here for the very first time, I want to welcome you. And I want to really welcome Reverend Dr. Barry Fleet and his wife, Deborah, and just wave to everybody. And they are joining us today for the first time. And Reverend Barry hails to us from, and his wife come to us from Rhode Island. And we will be holding his practitioner license. But that is such a minuscule description of who he is and what he has to offer. And over time, you'll get to meet him and know his gifts and his generosity of spirit. But I just wanted to welcome you here today. I'm so glad you're with us. Is there anybody else here that I have not met or that's here for the first time? No? Okay. All right. Just wanted to make sure I caught that then. So, Marcy, there is somebody?
No, I just want to say something.
Oh, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Dory wasn't able to make our new member, so I wanted to say hi to Dory for everybody to say hi to her.
Oh, Dory as a new member. Yes, Dory, welcome into the CSLNJ membership.
I was here for that.
Were you here for that? Okay, then maybe it was somebody else. Never mind.
Okay. Never mind.
Barry couldn't make it.
Thank you for the second welcome, everyone.
Well, it's good to have a sense of humor.
Yeah.
So, I am going to offer you a meditation, and because we have silent meditation every morning, and today it was beautiful with Joe Christiana. I want to let you know that today I'm going to be offering a guided meditation, which is not the norm. I know that we've done both over the years, but my guided meditation will be to support the talk for today. But in addition to that, I want to tell you that last week when I tuned into the Sunday celebration with Brian and Neil, I was so excited I was re-stimulated about the teaching. I was reminded why I'm in Science of Mind and my passion for Science of Mind and my passion for the textbook and for all that we do in here. So much so that I have decided to throw out what we were going to do. And we have decided to bring alive the textbook for the year. Now, don't for a second think that that's going to be boring. I wouldn't allow that to be boring. It is going to be exciting because it will turn out to be about application. And Ernest Holmes was clear. If you can't demonstrate something, you don't know something. And thank you for that reminder. Yes, happy birthday, Marcia. And is there anybody else whose birthday is today that we don't know about? Nope. Okay. So every week in your emails, you're going to be informed about what pages to read. And the same thing today as last week. I'm going to invite you to ask questions in the chat. And Neil will be my support here. So if you have a question, you send it to Neil in the chat, and he will tap me on the shoulder and tell me that there's a question to be had. So that's about today's service and our Sundays going forward. But I also want to tell you that our beloved Elaine DeMars, just yesterday, her brother passed away due to COVID. So please open your hearts to her and just hold her in a really tender place. She was clearly quite shaken. We were holding the light for her and for him. And so she's, relatively thrown as she would be. So as a community member, we just want to love on her. So anybody here who's in her family group, the small group, I meant to say the home group, the purpose of these small groups is to care for each other. If you are in her small group, please reach out. That's what we do because it's like a family, right? So please make sure that you do reach out and offer her your love and support. So with that, having said that, I invite you to close your eyes for a moment if you care to. And I'm going to invite you to become very aware of your imagination. Some of you might say, I don't have a good imagination. Okay. Then for you, you can activate your feeling tone and the vibration of your feeling tone. And what I'd like you to do right now is to take something that's happening in your life right now that's not working. Take something that if you could wave a magic wand, you would have it be different. This could be a health issue. This could be a prosperity issue, a relationship issue, a career issue. Doesn't matter what it is. Bring something to mind that has been causing you some strife. I'm going to give you a moment to choose and get that in your mind. And now what I'd like you to do is to imagine that thing being at the very center of a ball of yarn. And those of you who might knit or crochet, you know what happens when you have a ball of yarn and if it gets a knot. Imagine this thing at the center of this large ball of yarn. And what I'm asking you to do is to consciously choose to believe as you are imagining yourself to unravel this yarn, to pull on the yarn very slowly. And imagine that as you are unraveling the yarn, you are also unraveling the issue. You are unraveling the struggle. You are unraveling the pain. And as you continue to do this, the reduction of the size of that ball of yarn represents ease that you're beginning to find, solution that you're beginning to find, healing that you're beginning to find. Very gentle. There's no force here, there's no intellectualizing it. What we're doing is we're using our imagination to come from issue to solution in the most gentle way. And now I'll ask you to let yourself imagine that this process has been expedited. And as you come to the center of that ball of yarn, what was no longer is. What is a transformed idea. Let yourself see a transformed idea. If it was a health issue, see wholeness. If it was a relationship issue, see love. If it was a career issue, see yourself employed. But use the ability of your mind to think and imagine in the direction of your highest desired outcome. Now feel a sense of gratitude for your ability to do that. Be grateful. Now take a breath, a couple of breaths from your upper chest, and re-enter the room. And what I invite you to do right now is, if you care to type into the chat the solution, the outcome. What did unraveling the confusion do for you? And just share that with everyone here. And I'm just going to watch the chat for a minute. Oh, no, we're still saying happy birthday. Okay. Okay. Be generous in your participation, because your participation inspires another. Beautiful. Beautiful. And this is what happens when we allow ourselves to align with the creative, with the creative. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay. So today we are looking at, in the textbook, Purple. I'm ready to go, right? There's nothing else. Where are you? Where'd she go?
Yes, when you are ready.
Okay. Okay. I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything.
Not
It's been a minute. Thank you, Rev. So we are looking at pages 63 through 70, in the beginning, God. Now, one of the very first things I would like to do, and this is I used to say this every so often to keep us reminded, but I want to remind us again. You come here we all came together from a variety of paths. Some of us love God. Some of us love science. And I want to encourage you to remember that one does not negate the other, and that the words that might come out of my mouth do not negate what the value of what I'm saying, the value of what Ernest Holmes says when he refers to God in the textbook, or it does not negate the power of what you believe in the way you believe it. Okay, so let's make sure always that we don't allow ourselves to separate ourselves out by whether or not we like the word or the concept God. I myself remember a gazillion years ago in one of the Sunday celebrations, in the first year, having a moment of standing in front of you all and telling you that I had decided to get off the fence and I was choosing to use the word God, because prior to that, now I'm already a minister at this point, prior to that, it wasn't working for me. I had to avoid that word. I have made peace with that word, and I've made peace with the concept. But that's me. Okay, so we're going to come at this from whatever point we need to come at it. Holmes, in the beginning of this chapter, he decides to rewrite the Genesis story. It was not written in a way that I might write it myself if I was writing it. So I want to remind you that the initial textbook was written in 1927, and then the rewrite, the re-editing happened, I believe, Neil, we said 1938. Am I correct there? Yeah, okay, good. So you have to understand that Ernest Holmes had his hand on something precious. He really did. He had gathered information from a wide variety of places and put it together in a way, for me, is very manageable and bite-sized pieces that I can personally live with. However, that's not necessary for everyone. But the language was written at a time where proper English, or not high English, but the way he wrote it, come on, I every time I have to read he in the textbook, I go like this, just a little bit, and a great majority of ministers in this movement are women. And here we are, we're at the top of our game and giving life to this teaching and to this movement, and we're still reading he all over in the textbook. And my mind has to do this every time. I have to switch it out. Not because it's wrong, just because I want to read it in a way that doesn't catch my attention. So I do that. And some of you might do that, just like the word God. So you do what you have to do to get through it. However, it is always through us. It is always through us. You find the language, you make it work. So one of the things that's going to come up here, and I want to explain this word, especially if you're still relatively new to this teaching. And that's the word consciousness. To any practitioner or minister here, I think we can agree that explaining consciousness might be one of the most difficult things to explain. And so I want to give you an analogy, something that you've heard from me before, but it works. And if you're, like I said, if you're new, this might be something for you. I'm inviting you to think of consciousness as a filter in your mind. Okay, as a filter. If as a, let's say, a very new student, or a very we'll go differently. A wounded individual who does not know to live by choice will have a filter that he or she sees life through, and it'll be very clogged. Like if you were to hold your hands up, cross your fingers in front of the screen, you would hardly be able to see through it. Go ahead, try it. Honestly, see you can hardly, if your fingers are really closed and tight, you can hardly see through the filter, and think of that as consciousness. But as we heal and as we expand, what happens is there's an opening where then, now I hold my fingers up and I can see you with greater ease. So for me, that analogy is when I'm like this, as much as I might want to say, I'm available to God, God knows me at itself, God demonstrates through me. If I'm like this, there's not really a hope in hell that I've given access to spirit to have its way with me. In order for spirit to have its way with me, I must do this. Now, I say that to you on this day because understanding consciousness is a critical foundational idea for everything that we teach, for everything. So when we talk about expanding consciousness, maybe in the future, you just think about opening yourself up, that you become more available to the give and the receive and the love and the flow and the power. Okay. You might want to ask yourself, or you might be considering, well, what closes it down? What keeps it closed? I'll tell you right now, there are some very specific things that keep it closed. And then there's all the things I don't know about you. Some are the things that we share: being judgmental, being opinionated, being critical, finding fault, blaming, not loving oneself. All of those things clog the filter of our consciousness and do not allow spirit to move through us. So when we take hold of those spiritual habits And when we somewhat conquer them, then what happens is we're available for more flow. And because I was listening in this morning to the Psalm Sunday, I heard the discussion of worry. And I want to remind us again, the habit of worry is hands down one of the single most detrimental habits any one of us could have. And what do you do about it? Right? So that's a question. What do you do about it? For example, if we are worrying about someone, which is the most frequent thing that we do, we worry about someone. And we have the mistaken idea that worrying about someone is a loving thing to do. But if we are going to concern ourselves with someone's health and wholeness, we want to have remain within us a picture of them in a state of perfection. I cannot love you and worry about you simultaneously. They cancel each other out and they can't contain the same space. Is that clear? So taking the time to ponder this and to become disciplined in it is completely worthy of your time and energy. Okay, so I wanted to give you that as a foundation. But on page 66, paragraph 5, Ernest Holmes says, spirit being all and only, there is nothing for it to change into but itself. This is really radical. This means that everything that exists has always existed. Anything that you think you desire already exists. And what it also speaks to is that you and I, by thinking itself, we are always, I say that word without any exception, we are always creating. Ernest Holmes said, Neil, help me out here. Where was that other thing about creation? Where was that? The one you told me about this morning. I love that we get to talk about the teaching across the, did I not print out every page?
It is on
Page
page
67.
67, end of second paragraph.
Right, somehow I didn't print that out. On page 67, the second paragraph, he says, to be spiritual is to create. And my favorite thing, one of my other favorite things about this textbook, it's somewhere in here, it says, create or perish. Doesn't that sound pretty like a commandment? Create or perish. Now, what if you don't feel very creative? You can't not be creative. By virtue of being, you are creative. Of course, then there's the whole layers of creative as a writer, as a musician, as an artist, as all those other expressions. But now is the time for you and I to embrace the idea that we create. Yes, as long as you are alive, you are creating. Okay, I'm gonna come back around to that. So as we know that everything creates simultaneously. Everything is simultaneously here. Some things have to be allowed and embraced so that they show up in our life, but everything exists. He says on page 69, paragraph 3, hence, being whom we call God must be self-existent. God speaks and it is done. If God speaks his word, let's change that. The word of God must be law. So if we go back to our foundational belief that you and I are God, you and I are of God, and God demonstrates as us. If this is the reality, then what that says is as I'm thinking, I'm creating, as I'm speaking, I'm creating, As I'm being, I'm creating. I'm putting you all on notice, all of you that are here. You are responsible. Ouch. So there's 3 ways we're responsible. We're and we take it to the degree that you're willing. I'm I'm responsible for what I've created, and I can sit with that. I can live with that. Or I'm responsible for how I respond to things. Coronavirus. I don't believe I personally created it, but I'm responsible for how I respond to this crisis. And then I'm responsible going forward with how I create going forward. So there's 3 ways that we could be responsible, but you and it's almost like I want to crawl in your heads to hear if you to know if you heard me. And actually, if you did hear me, there's a reaction on the bottom of your screen. Give me a thumbs up or an applause or a heart because you can have the reaction there. I want to know you hear this. You are never, there we go. You are never not creating. Beautiful. Good. I love the hearts. That's great. That's great. So if this is true, then living in right relationship with life is very important. I struggled this morning, and Neil and I picked it apart a little bit. Again, I just love these morning conversations. The idea of having dominion. And I believe that man, now I mean man, because man has been the authority, man has misused and abused the idea of dominion. Anybody agree with me with that? It's been misused and abused. There, in taking dominion over, is where we have allowed the license for slavery, for harming, for abuse. I'm going to get raw here, for sex trafficking and the misuse of people, for stripping the earth of its beauty and its resources, because we have misused the idea of having dominion over. And I would love for each one of you to take that into your consideration this week. What does it mean to have dominion? Well, I want to propose a higher idea. I want to propose that to have dominion in order to have the kind of dominion that would lift us would be to live in right relationship with all of life. I think that not according to the text, not according to the definition, Ty. I see you said dominion actually means stewardship. That's a lovely meaning. Not if you look it up in the dictionary, unfortunately. But there are religions and spiritual cultures that will not put a bit of food in their mouth, not even a bit of food in their mouth without blessing it first. Yesterday, I entered the home of a friend. I was doing a pastoral visit. Her husband just passed away. And she had a new thought kind of mezuzah outside of her door, a blessing outside of her door. And she was so happy I noticed it and knew what it was. Do you all know what that is? Maybe it's a Jewish prayer that gets touched when you enter or leave a home. I'm not sure which direction. But I noticed it. I took notice that I mentioned to her. It was quite beautiful. See, so when I entered her home, I was in right relationship with her home. We went to sit, she served me lunch. We went to sit in the living room, and I knew one of the chairs that were there belonged to her husband, who just passed. So I said to her, which chair is his? And she told me which chair it was. And she said, and you can sit there. And I did sit there, and I sat there acknowledging the presence of this man who had just left this house. So I was in right relationship with the presence of this person who had lived in this house. When we are eating food, are we in right relationship with the food that we eat? Because that right relationship and that feeling a blessing for is the healthy way to take dominion. And out of that, you and I are creating. Out of that, we're creating. Somebody else I know, well, Dawn Lee just got her first grandchild. And someone else I know, oh, Beth Bachman, we were speaking the other day. Beth has her brand new grandchild. She's a first time grandmother. There, and as we acknowledge, right, we see life in the grandchildren and we see how life is being drawn through them. And when we view our grandchildren from that high and holy place of having dominion with, we are going to acknowledge and pull that up through them. But never, if we are living in right relationship, we will make the mistake of thinking it is over somebody. So you and I are always creating. He says on page 70, paragraph 1, God did not make law. Law is co-eternal with God. God did not make substance. This is also coexistence and co-eternal with God. But God did make and does make and is making and will continue to make from eternity to eternity forms. Okay, that sounds very dry. I understand that. When we're talking about law, it's serious. It's a very serious concept to embrace as a religious scientist, as one practicing the science of mind. Because it speaks to the absolute nature that we are never outside of creation. When you are kind to another, that kindness has a power that multiplies itself. It's one of the ways that we use the law, right? We just came through the thing itself, the way it works, what it does, and how to use it. Well, how to use it most definitely is to use it consciously. So a thing to recognize is if you and I, if we get caught in righteous judgment, righteous opinions, that is one of the quickest ways to cut off the energetic flow of God as us in this art of creation. Does that make sense? We need to move in the movement. I want to tell you really, well, it's not that quick of a story. I'll try to leave off the details. Many of you know, like Neil and I are buying the house that we've been living in for 5 years. And the home, the place where I live, it's not a wonderful home. It's an okay home. But we moved here so we could be near our grandchildren who are literally a stone's throw, literally. So every time I found my mind going toward criticizing my home, I would retrieve it, pull it back and say, nope, I have my children. Okay. So I made sure that I stayed in acknowledgement of that. Over the summer, we were considering purchasing a townhouse, which fell through. That's not a problem. My son and his girlfriend, some other friends were here during the summer. And my son's girlfriend said to me, well, would you ever buy this house? I went, oh, this house needs so much work. I wouldn't buy it unless, and I'm going to tell you the number because it's just so shocking. I wouldn't buy this house unless he sold it to me for like $200,000. Okay. When the purchase of the townhouse fell through, and the day we found out about it, the day Neil found out about it, minutes later, the landlord called us announcing to us that he decided to sell this house. And he said to Neil, yeah, I think it's time. I don't need, he's a retired man. He owns a couple pieces of property. He doesn't need the money. He doesn't need the headaches. So Neil said, okay, yeah, that's a good idea, Frank, but you have to know. And he kind of listed the things that the house would need. At the end of that conversation, guess how much he agreed to sell us the house for? $200,000. Now, please give me an amen. Holy crap, right? Isn't that, I mean, think about that. Now, be honest, I couldn't have done it any other way. But we are living in right relationship with life on a daily basis. Neil and I did not stop, drop, and treat for a $200,000 house. We didn't stop, drop, and treat that this man would let this happen. We were simply living in right relationship, in kindness, in good, in generosity. And so that what became possible is that we opened the space naturally and easily and lovingly to accept this gift. Are you hearing me? We don't have to force good in place. We have to live from that good and allow. Live from the good and allow. Yes, we do not have to force good into place. We live from that good, accept it and allow it. And then there is one more piece. Acknowledge it. Raise and praise the law. Raise and praise the possibility. Raise and praise the gift so that it doesn't get by you. When Neil serves me coffee, and he does, he's the coffee maker in the house, and he brings me coffee. If he's home and I'm home at the same time, that man makes and brings me coffee. And I will never let him bring me coffee without me saying thank you. And he never lets me make a meal without saying thank you. Living from gratitude. These are the principles and practices that put us in right relationship with all of life. Are you hearing me? Doesn't this make this relatively easy and fun and joy-filled? No big thing. Yes, if you meditate every day, fantastic. You treat every day, fantastic. But mostly living from a state of love. Yeah, living from a state of love. And Joe Christiana, I'm going to ask you to unmute, to put your video on for a moment if you're with us. And I want to, because I would like to make sure that we put like an exclamation point sometimes on Sundays. And Joe shared a testimonial this morning. I'd like her to share with all of you. And if there is one other person that recently has demonstrated something that felt a little magical, let me know in the chat, and I or let Neil know, and I will invite you to share it, but short. Okay, so Joe, please share with us, everyone, what you shared with me this morning.
Okay, so my house has been being painted, and before the painting, the spackling, the dust, everything. So I had a headache for a couple of days, and I was taking Advil, whatever, but the headache would go away, it would come again. And I frankly was, I had had enough of this headache, and I had had enough of taking Advil or Tylenol to get rid of it. So when I was leaving ShopRite yesterday, the headache was with me. And I just said, you know what? That's it. I know who I am. I know the truth of my being. And because I know the truth of my being, sickness, this headache is impossible. It's just impossible for me to feel this anymore. And I spoke it out loud, and I spoke it with a lot of vehemence, and I was really serious about this whole thing. It wasn't even with the intention of making the headache go away. It was just, I just was claiming my truth. I was claiming who I am. And God should strike me down right now, but my headache left, and it
Or
never
not.
came back. Or not. But I mean, in all seriousness, it just went away. and it hasn't come back. And it's just, yes, raising and praising and praising and praising. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there one other, does anyone else, Neil, did anyone tap you on the shoulder? Okay. I am going to be asking for testimonials on a regular basis. Please be willing to share, because your sharing inspires others. Your sharing inspires others. So that is my version of In the Beginning God, pages 63 to 70. Reverend Joel will be back with us next week. I don't know if he's going to be able to do all of chapter 2 next week. It's a big chapter. So we are going to methodically go through the textbook, and that process will be interrupted because we'll be celebrating different practices and different, we do Phoenix and we do other things that will break it up. So we will, there'll be times it won't be that. Watch your emails, watch the breeze, please, because that's where this information is going to come from. And I want to offer you because Healing the Divide is happening in March. So I want to offer you one piece from Resma Menachem, who is the author of My Grandmother's Hands, and a piece I read in the book the other day, especially since this is Black History Month. If you go somewhere, if you go to a store and there is a person of color or a person not of color to take care of you, go to the person of color. I would like you to err on the side of becoming familiar with, honoring, making room for, and engaging others for reasons of yours, for theirs, and for the witnessing, that it becomes a practice and we become familiar with to being naturally in relationship in a way that others can view that. So if you are somebody who works in a store and a person of color comes to the counter, and a white person, pay attention to the person of color first, because of the emphasis and the silent message that gives to all who are witnessing. This is a simple way of practicing expanding our awareness and our consciousness. And every week I hope to bring to you another, yes, visibility is powerful. Yes, thank you, Purple. So I hope to bring to you, and we're going to have a creative piece for you at the end of the month to bring to you a hint to do every week, so that we can all collectively as a center be part of the healing of the divide that exists. Let's pray into this space. Thank you for being with me here today. It's so lovely to be back. So know with me right now that there is this power. Oh, stunning. Stunning, stunning, stunning. It is beautiful in all ways that it could possibly be. It ebbs and flows and moves, and it seeps into each of us individually and the collective at a cellular level. And I declare at that cellular level that every place where we allow spirit to seep in is lifted, transformed, made whole. It is beautiful. I declare for each one of us that this one that goes by many names, by the name of love also, that love lifts us, inspires us, heals what needs to be healed, transforms what needs to be transformed. And let us rest in the healing, loving hands of the beloved one, by any name or by any form of the imagination. Let us feel the love of this community that is palpable as it is in every home, every separate home through all the states that we come together right now, even in these separate locations, placing our attention on that love raises that vibration. That if you're paying attention right now, you can feel it, you can sense it. It is good and holy and beautiful. Let that be that which guides us. Let that be what lightens the path before us, that makes the crooked places straight, that allows us to find our intuition and our inspiration. Let us call this good and so very good. I am grateful, grateful beyond measure for this community, for the love of spirit, for the science of mind teaching, and for the technology that brings us together. With bountiful gratitude, I simply say, and so it is. So please, we have some announcements, and I encourage you to not leave us until we have some things to tell you about. And I'm going to get my
have a song.
PowerPoint for you up and running, Purple.
We have a
Yeah.
song.
Oh, you have a song. My apologies. Good, 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 good.
I'm raising the veil between me and my God. No separation, no distance at all. God is right here in my heart.